Thank you so much, Karima, and it's a pleasure really to see you there. And as you said, we were former colleagues when you were also part of this crowd of resident coordinators. Really thankful for the interventions of the PRs of Luxembourg and Ecuador for giving credit and the space to the resident coordinator system and the UN country teams in this conversation about human rights and impact in development. And very happy to say hi in her new role to our ASG for the Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights, Claudia Fuentes, with whom I have the pleasure to work over her tenure in Geneva. And there are other colleagues in the panel, Habiba Osman, who I had the pleasure to work in Malawi. So it looks like there are a group of colleagues, former colleagues and friends having this very important conversation. I can see also Arnaud Peral from the Philippines, so it's great to see you, Arnaud. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to discuss with the ECOSOC on precisely how human rights are central to development efforts. And I'm going to focus, as Karima mentioned, on exactly the rights of indigenous people and critical minerals. But I really wanted to echo something that ASG Fuentes mentioned, and it is precisely how human rights are at the center of development, are not accessory to development. It is at the center of development. It's not an abstract principle. It's an operational framework and shapes how we design policies, how we deliver programs, and how we measure success. Three very quick examples, and then I'm going to zoom in into our issue of human rights, indigenous rights, and lithium. Our country team has been very, very forthcoming in supporting the government of Chile in fulfilling their obligations, particularly on the UPR. And we tagged all the indicators of our progress report to how we were supporting or not the UPR recommendations. In 2024, you can see that in our report of activities. And that was technical work with a strong support from the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights and the entire country team. Second example is on disability. We just established a disability advisory committee to the country team. It's a new feature, and I think it's listening to RAI, precisely giving a voice to impact and give a space in programming of the country team in Chile to people with disability. The third example is on data, and how we have produced, furthering the GEAP commitment, the Secretary General, Gender CCA, that provides the data for the new cooperation framework that we are just developing, specific data on gender gaps and opportunities that I'm convinced we are going to be using thoroughly in our planning process. Now, human rights really help us to go from projects, fragmented interventions, and not systematic responses to really tackling the root causes of inequality and strengthen accountability. I think this is key. It is key because it's the way in which we can support countries to really come together with their own communities, with their own different people, to really make sure that we are taking those farther behind and putting them leading the development process. They are agents of change. I think this is the transformation that happens when human rights is at the center of our planning process. And for that, we really need to come together as country teams and using the capacities of the different actors in our teams. And I have to say very proudly that we have that in Chile. So we have a very strong Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights. We have a strong ILO office. Therefore, we have labor rights very close and central, and lots of capacities by different agencies on environment and development, which has helped us to come to respond positively to this request by the Ministry of Mining that I'm going to tell you about. So on this request, the Ministry of Mining wanted to help of the UN to support capacity building in the process of the national lithium strategy. In particular, this initiative that brought the expertise of the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights and ILO together, we really focus and center in strengthening the knowledge of indigenous people's rights in the consultation process, bringing international standards and including the elements of 1969 Convention of the ILO, as well as the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. And we did that together with the officials, meaning civil servants that were in charge in the consultation processes and in dialogue with indigenous communities, both at national and regional level. And let me strengthen that part of the regional level, because if we don't reach out to those areas, territories, and communities, we are never going to realize the leave no one behind paradigm. So this effort of the UN system that also counted with my involvement in the beginning of the request includes human rights expertise, technical labor standards, and also using the UN convening role to support a shared understanding across institutions. This is what UN support looks like in practice: demand-driven, interdisciplinary, and focused on strengthening state capacity to uphold human rights. Now, if we want to really look into how a meaningful consultation and participation of indigenous peoples and local communities impacts lithium mining, what are those lessons learned? Allow me to just share a few thoughts here. You know that Chile is one of the top runners in the global energy transition. It has a dominant position in the global lithium market, over 30% of global reserves. So it means a lot for the country and for the global community, I believe. Lithium is a strategic mineral for decarbonization, and global demand continues to grow rapidly. It is expected to increase fivefold between 2024 to 2040. So it is here to stay for a while. And the experience of lithium and the work that we did together with the Ministry of Mining reminds us of a fundamental truth that I think it was underlined by our ASG on human rights. Energy transition is not about technologies and markets. It's about people, rights, and justice. We need to put the two together. As such, the energy transition is not just sustainable unless it's grounded in human rights. I think this is one of the fundamental lessons that we have learned. Critical energy transition minerals presents undeniable opportunities, but also there are risks involved in this type of work. And I think the key word here is responsible with climate action, economic diversification, decent work, and sustainable development. Can we do that as we look into countries expanding their own economic matrix? There is something very essential to achieve this is governance. We need to make sure that the governance of these processes achieve results, because reproducing patterns of exclusion, environmental degradation, and inequality is not going to give the communities that sustainable development aspiration, and it really can undermine any benefits that can come in the short run. Therefore, we absolutely advocate from this experience to understand that for indigenous communities, land or territory is not a resource. It's also a source of life, identity, and cultural continuity. Therefore, when we are discussing energy transition, it's very important to absolutely take into account the rights-based approach to make sure that we are not just thinking about today, but we are also creating a prospect that can sustain in the future. In Chile, the UN system has supported spaces for dialogue. This is super important role that we play in many countries around the world, but I would say that in particular, the trust that the UN provides by opening a table and bringing different stakeholders grounded on the rights of indigenous people has been essential to meaningful consultations, participation, consistent with international standards. I have to say that our Office of the High Commissioner...
María José, can I please ask you to wrap up?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So maybe a couple of gaps and 3 lessons. So there is one element that is very important. One thing is the standards, and the other thing is the implementation. So I think this is something that we need to keep in mind when we are discussing these issues. And the other element is how this agenda is not marginal but central to the sustainable development agenda. So 3 lessons from Chile. First, participation is not optional, it's a right. And I think as a community, we need to work together with the local and central government as well as with the communities to realize it. Second, policy coherence is not a technical element, but it requires political commitment across institutions and sectors. And third, integrated UN support is not just an administrative exercise, it's catalytic for more inclusive and sustainable development outcomes. So coordination, as discussed, is not only about bringing people together, it's about impact. And I hope this experience from Chile can illustrate that. Thank you very much.